Policy of sponsoring terror in Bharat seems to have gained fresh momentum. 4 back-to-back attacks in June and 2 in the last 1 week have resulted in the martyrdom of several of our forces. In the face of continued Pakistan-sponsored terror, strengthening of counter-terror machinery and punitive approach is necessary, and that's what perhaps we are doing as a nation, because the enemy seems to have also shifted the theatre of action towards the Jammu region. Multiple terror attacks in Jammu and Kashmir in the recent past, especially in the region south of the Pir Panjal. There is little doubt that China also uses Pakistan as a proxy military and nuclear power against us. This edition will attempt to blow the lid off another such attempt by both these nations to bleed Bharat with 1,000 cuts. If not, then what is the ulterior motive of what has been unearthed is something that we'll try and ask our guests. Now, here's what we've learned from our intelligence sources. Jammu has almost 50 foreign terrorists or FTs who are all from Pakistan. And the focus is slowly shifting away from the Kashmir region to the Jammu region. Jammu is the new battleground or the theatre of action because these proxies believe there is scope to expand and also cause further mayhem among the largely Hindu population there. They are trained young terrorists who are highly radicalized. Are these cadre who've been moved away from Afghanistan and now being positioned in Bharat? We'll have to wait and watch. They are trained in such a way that they can survive without contact in the area, without the support of too many OGWs. They are using the dhoks on the outskirts of villages, which are used largely by the ever-moving nomadic population of the Bakarwals and the Gujars there, or the shepherd community. They're capable of collecting information on their own instead of relying on OGWs. And to radicalize these men, there are also videos of ambush and attack that are spread on social media by the Lashkar to make this a psychological war also. So these psyops continue. But why is Jammu now becoming the hotspot for these terrorists is a question that one may want to ask. Kashmir is successful due to the flat terrain, and in Poonch Rajouri, the terrain is very difficult because of many highs and lows, and it's also spread out, which is why there hasn't been much provocation until now. These Pak-backed terrorists are entering from the Hiranagar sector and that side, and there is a possibility of perhaps 1 or 2 tunnels, long tunnels, that are facilitating their entry into Bharat's territory. Synergy of response in terms of Kashmir is excellent, and this will take some time to replicate in the Jammu region, and the terrorists think that they can exploit this. Pakistan Army is of the belief that deployment in Jammu is lower than Kashmir, which affects their reaction time as well, and they hope to be able to exploit that. When I say deployment of the military and also the paramilitary forces, and also the entire security grid that's now been perfected in the Kashmir region, that needs to be perfected in the Jammu region. But all such efforts have also met with an equal and befitting response from our forces, and who are recalibrating very, very fast. But there is the other dynamic. Who and what is emboldening the Pakistanis recently? Is there a bigger entity or a person at play? And in this case, the fingers point towards China because of that meeting in Beijing, supply of fresh funds as a security, money deposit that's been given to protect the CPEC corridor. But is there a diversion here and a deliberate attempt by China to try and force Bharat into reducing the deployment along the LAC and force a redeployment by creating trouble in the Jammu region? So that's the overall game, if you can see it. But something more sinister, ladies and gentlemen. The axis of evil, as some experts are being calling it, is up to no good when it comes to fomenting trouble in this region. And it is not limited to just pushing terror and aggression on the borderlines anymore. Both our neighbors seem to now be indulging in transport of illicit substances. Now, just on Thursday, Bharat has seized a large consignment of a chemical that can be used to produce tear gas or other riot control agents. A Chinese vessel bound for Pakistan was seized at the Kattupalli port in Tamil Nadu. Top intelligence sources have told CNN News 18 that China and Pakistan's relationship has progressed far beyond just economic investments and energy projects. Pakistan has clear value for Beijing as a source for transporting illicit substances. China has recently boasted of its growing and updated nuclear weapons program, perhaps as a challenge to the West's support of Taiwan, Philippines, and among others. Beijing is seeing Pakistan as a nation that can be easily exploited and subverted and subverting sanctions and export-import controls. Beijing also believes that China has more scrutiny than Pakistan vis-à-vis international bans and regulations, and intelligence sources believe that China needs Pakistan for the sake of plausible deniability. But is Pak soil being used for something further and more sinister, and what kind of chemicals, and why is such chemical and such substance at high amounts being transported to Pakistan is a question that needs to be answered. Ambassador Deepak Vora, former diplomat, is with us. Aina Tangan, senior fellow, Taihe Institute, and also chairman of Asia Narratives, joins us. Sushil Pandit, Kashmiri activist, is with us, and Kamar Chima, strategic and defense analyst, joining us from Pakistan. My namaste to everybody. Thank you very, very much. Ambassador Vora, let me first ask you, how would you see? There are two aspects that we're looking at. One, this entire renewed push or resurgence of this proxy war on Bharat's territory. The other is this entire China-Pak axis and what their machinations are. What do you read of this drug haul?
Thank you very much, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Loud and clear.
Thank you. Always a pleasure. And of course, we have these wonderful people on your show. I learned so much from them, as I do from you. And thank you very much for bringing up this issue, which only you have done. You are the best. And I'm speaking of you personally. So thank you very, very much. I think millions of people who watch your show should be aware of this. So let me put it across to you very bluntly. All this nonsense about higher than the mountains, deeper than the ocean, sweeter than honey, this is a Pakistani construct, not Chinese. Now, what is happening is the inevitable, inexorable rise of India, militarily, politically, diplomatically, culturally, however you do it, has made a new mountain, a new Everest rise in China's efforts to dominate Asia. That new mountain is called Bharat. Therefore, you circumvent that and go to, Satan goes to his consort, the consort is called Pakistan, and then says, look, you don't have the money to give back to me for all that nonsense about the Belt and Road Initiative or the CPEC or whatever it was. Therefore, now you start doing what I'm telling you. And now we are going to indulge, sir, I call this medicinal warfare. You disguise all this nonsense as medical drugs, not the kind of drugs that they are meant to be, and use Pakistan to transport them, not forgetting that Pakistan has enormous experience of dealing with this kind of nonsense during the Soviet-Afghan war, even subsequently. We have been seizing a lot of boats heading out of that Gadar port or whatever that port is called, which are loaded with cocaine and heroin meant for other countries. Therefore, how I see this and the recent seizure here is now Pakistan having got its nose bloodied in trying a direct confrontation with us, and China, which now practically owns Pakistan, treats it as a colony. I believe that it's in the interest of both to try and weaken anyone China perceives as its enemy, i.e. the West, India, Philippines, North Korea, South Korea, whatever. Don't forget that China has 19 neighbors, and leave out Pakistan. Pakistan is not really a neighbor, but leave out Pakistan, it has bad relations with all of them. So it has to adopt new forms of warfare to say, brother, I may not be a good friend, but I have enormous nuisance value, so don't mess with me, sir.
Now, according to the available details, a Chinese firm, Chengdu Shichin Trading Company Limited, has shipped a consignment of orthochlorobenzylidine malonitrile now to Rohel Enterprises, a Rawalpindi-based defense supplier. The consignment weighs about 2,560 kilograms, stored in 103 drums of 25 kilograms each and loaded into a carrier vessel Hyundai Shanghai, sailing under a Cyprus flag. On April 18, 2024 at the Shanghai port in China, the vessel on its voyage to Karachi reached the Kattupalli port in Tamil Nadu on the 8th of May 2024. The customs authorities on routine checking detained the consignment as chemical figured under India's export control list of SCOMET as a controlled substance. Further investigation of the chemical revealed that this orthochlorobenzylidine malonitrile CS was also a listed substance under the Wassenaar arrangement, of which India is a signatory. Subsequently, the consignment was seized under the provisions of Customs Act 1962 and the Weapons of Mass Destruction and Delivery Systems Provision of Unlawful Activities Act 2005. CS chemical finds potential usage in riot control agents and also as an incapacitating agent during war. Kamar Chima, why was this headed to Karachi?
Can you repeat the question, please?
I said, why was this headed to Karachi, this consignment?
Well, I definitely don't know which consignment is going in which direction. I am not looking at the Pakistan's customs, but the problem here is that why are you worried? I can understand that the NATO gave a statement just yesterday that somehow China is helping Russia in whatever the Russians are doing. So you are also trying to put a pressure on China or whatever Pakistan and India there is between Pakistan and India and Kashmir. This is China behind it. So I think that doesn't make a logic. Yes, I understand that the Indians have a problem with the China-Pakistan relation, but remember, China and India already have a good bilateral trade, and you have your own relations. But don't try to mingle or bring Chinese into it because the world is pressurizing China. The world is coming at the Chinese backyard in Indo-Pacific. That doesn't mean that give you the position that China is asking Pakistan to pressurize India and Kashmir. I think the Indians are really worried because the military level talks between China and India, they are not successful. Every time Prime Minister Modi had to shy away, for example, he didn't go at the SCO. He sent Dr. Jaishankar there. They are not. You are not having by the direct the flights from Beijing to Delhi. You are shying away from China. We can understand there are direct cargo flights from China to India, but there are no direct passenger flights. So I think the Indians are unable to do what they are unable to decide how to deal with China. So they're running from pillar to post. Sometimes you hide behind America, sometimes you hide behind Pakistan, sometimes you try to hide behind another Western power. But there is no solution with the Indians how to deal with China. So I can understand the panic. The more the Americans pressurize China, the more leverage India gets to pressurize China. So I think I understand at the moment the Prime Minister Modi and his leadership, this is one of the most pro-West government in the Indian history. And the media is trying to replicate and tell the world, oh, yes, yes, we are just trying to be the proxy of the United States in the region because we are being given a role of a big brother in the region.
Kamarjima, this
You
is
may
what
be
I
the
love
big
about
brother
you,
in
sir.
the region.
This is what I really enjoy about you. The more I allow you to speak, the more you tangle yourself, and your arguments is far more convoluted than a jalebi here at Chandni Chowk.
No, it's not about jalebi. It's just a fact.
No. I'll tell you why. And I'll tell you why. You had so much to say about India, and you have no clue what Pakistan is doing. Thankfully, sir, Hawa Hawaii is a Bollywood song, but what you are indulging in, but what I am not indulging in. This is fact-based, sir. This is what happened. This consignment left Shanghai. Was it true to Karachi? It was 2,560 kilograms of dual-use substance. And, sir, let me further give you more information to update you, and then you can decide what more spiel you would want to add. Or how much more you would want to desperately try to shift the goalpost. You are making the statement a day after Eric Garcetti had a problem with Prime Minister Narendra Modi hugging Vladimir Putin. And then you are saying that we are trying to tally to the back. Yahi main keh raha hu, sir. When I allow you to speak, you do your damage yourself. I don't need to do anything for you. That's what I love about you, sir. That's what I love about. But now back to facts. Interestingly, this is not the first occasion when China has supplied dual-use items and controlled substances to Pakistan in total violation of international covenants and regulations. China on previous occasions has also found to be clandestinely assisting Pakistan bolstering its WMD or weapons of mass destruction capability. Earlier this year, China shipped a consignment. Sir, hear me out. China shipped a consignment of CNC machinery onto a carrier vessel CMA CGM Attila, which was seized at the Nhava Sheva port in January 2024. Although Cosmos Engineering was mentioned as the consignee for the aforesaid CNC consignment, reports claimed that Desto was the actual end user. The confiscation of CNC machines of ultra-high precision class capable of producing sophisticated and precision components had potential usage in defense aerospace and nuclear fields, thereby raising proliferation concerns. So between January to May, two instances, सर समझदार बच्चा और शैतान बच्चे में फर्क होता है. शैतान बच्चे के हाथ में डंडा देखोगे तो माँ बाप घबरा जाते हैं. समझदार बच्चे के हाथ में बोलते हैं बच्चा साफ करेगा. तो यहाँ शैतान बच्चा कौन है, समझदार कौन है, सबको पता. Everybody understands that. Sushil Pandit, would you buy into Mr. Kamar Chima's logic, if you could find one?
Sir, logic and Kamar Chima are contraindicated. Pakistan has been a vassal state on hire. It's an assassin on hire for a long time. West used it in the Cold War against the Warsaw Pact, and today China is using it to finger everyone around the world, including the West, India, wherever. And this is the coming together of rogue countries who do not believe in international norms, regulations, treaties, and therefore everything falls in place. It's a very easy jigsaw puzzle. China has used counterfeit currency. China has used illicit drugs. China has used gun running. China has used trafficking in terrorists to undermine India consistently in the past few decades. China has caused a genocide of Hindus in Kashmir Valley in order to achieve its jihadi aims. Pakistan. Pakistan is a willing assassin on hire for China, and therefore it's doing its bidding, has been doing so for a long, long time, and offered its territory, has offered its economy a hostage to Chinese designs. And therefore the two are today linked inextricably. Pakistan has no other option but to kowtow to China because it owes a lot of money to China. It owes its nuclear program to China. It owes its missile program to China. It owes its entire economic float to China. So how else do you explain this entire situation? Mr. Kamachima has a difficult job at hand, but he will brazen it out, as he always does in each and every particular situation. I have nothing to offer because he is in complete denial. He won't accept. You can't have a logical debate or an argument with someone who is in complete denial of what they are doing.
A careful analysis of periodic seizures, Mr. Tangan, indicates that this is just a meager part of a larger proliferation network that exists between Pakistan and China. This is what research reports come out and say. Noteworthy to mention that in April 2024, the US Bureau of Industry and Security, BIS, sanctioned 3 companies, Chinese companies: Tianjin Creative Source, International Trade Company Limited, Grand Pact Company Limited, and Jianlongde Technology Development Company, for their involvement in supplying key components to Pakistan's ballistic missile program. What is happening, Mr. Tangan?
Well, you have a situation between China, Russia, India, Pakistan, and the United States where you have shifting alliances depending on the moment. Obviously Pakistan and India on the other part of that. I've listened carefully or tried to the arguments that have been put forward by the other commentators. I still am a little fuzzy on exactly why destabilizing India would be good for China. Actually, China has said many times that they wish India to do well, to continue to grow. That would be part of creating an Asian century versus colonial instigated conflict and division, which India knows much about. Right now, you've just come off a situation where NATO is on one side, the SCO is on the other, and it seems, that the world is dividing. NATO insists that it's a defensive alliance, but it wants to take on Asia. The SCO says, look, we're only about domestic stability. There's no, going after other countries or anything like that. Both India and Pakistan, Russia, China, they're all parts of that organization. The hope was bringing these nations together would create a place to create peace. There are long-standing cultural, political issues between these countries, India and Pakistan. Hopefully that can be resolved. But this idea that somehow it would be in China's interest to have confusion in India is not the way that they see it here in Beijing.
But tell me, why are these supplies then happening? Why are these supplies of dual-use components being sent to a nation that both China, the world is going to be wary of, and that they can get trigger happy, and it's in nobody's interest to supply them with this kind of technology and these kind of chemicals?
Well, I think there's this kind of popular misconception that if somebody is Chinese, that they're acting on behalf of the Chinese nation. I don't assume that somebody in India, if they do something, is acting on behalf of the Indian nation or government. So I think that's a different issue. You have, just depending on perspective. In Washington, they take a very dim view of India's oil trade with Russia, which is going mostly to Europe. I'm not saying that it's right or wrong. I don't understand exactly why there's this kind of vilification of all of China, 1.4 million people, because the acts of a few companies who are being motivated not by politics, but by greed. And there was a chap from India who was convicted recently in the United States. Is that being held against India, saying Indians are all frauds and things like that? Of course not. That's silly. You have to differentiate the acts of individuals from those of the governments.
But these companies don't seem to be, on the face of it, private companies, and they cannot be exporting such material which is under the proliferations list and of banned substances as far as international signatories. And the end port is Karachi, sir. It's not that Karachi was going to be a medium view, and it's not one. It's a series of such shipments that have happened, be it for ballistic missile use or even the latest shipment of CS, which can be used for any of the biological or chemical warfare against its own people or anywhere else. Ambassador Deepak Vora, how would you read this? Do you buy this explanation that it necessarily have to be backed by the Chinese state? The port of origin is Shanghai. There are not one but multiple companies that have been listed by the BIS in the US. I've read that out. And this latest company and this latest shipment that's been intercepted in Chennai.
With utmost respect, may I just say, even the devil can quote scripture for his purpose. That's a saying that is totally true about our colleagues from China. No, sir. China has a unifocal agenda, which is to dominate the world, and India stands like a barrier. People tell me that China doesn't have the time to think about India. Not true at all. It spends a lot of its time trying to create trouble for us. We matter to them more than you would believe. As far as companies are concerned, I've heard about the private sector in China. Yeah, sell me another one, sir. I love snake oil. Every company there is controlled by the Communist Party of China. Tibet is whatever you might call it, an autonomous region, great autonomy. They decide things themselves. No, sir. Nomenclature doesn't matter. It's actions that speak louder than words.
Sushil Panditji, the FTs in the Jammu region, this being the latest theater of action.
Yes, I would. First, let me respond to Mr. Tangent. He's created a false equivalence about India importing Chinese, Russian oil and sending it to Europe.
Crude oil is not
We
in the
are
ban
not
list.
creating, we are not creating alibis. Indian state stood up and owned up and justified this. We are not hiding behind different kinds of pretexts or excuses to shirk responsibility. This is our legitimate right, and we are doing so. Unlike what China is saying, that there are some private companies, unknown ghost companies trying to profit. No, sir, that's not the right equivalence. As far as Jammu is concerned, today there is a heightened terror activity in Jammu. We have a Hindu-dominated region being now. There's an attempt to cleanse and upset the demographic balance of that region after doing the same in the valley. Now, this is a very clear machination from across the border. They have been targeting Hindus because Hindus steadfastly stand by Indian nationalism. They are not easy to subvert, to draw into subversion, and therefore create a demographic situation which would then benefit Pakistan for waging jihad against India. This is what they did in Kashmir. This is now what they attempt to do in Jammu. And China, knowing India's opposition to the CPEC, because they are passing through Indian territory of Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, would like to see this happen. India's standing in the state of Jammu and Kashmir further weakened so that our opposition to Chinese transgression over our territory gets weakened. So there is a very clear collusion of interest between China and Pakistan. And the way PLA is right now sitting in Indian territory controlled by Pakistan, in the Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, is a further proof of this collusion.
Sir, if the Pakistanis want to come, I've got to wind up, but if the Pakistanis really want shelter and asylum in Bharat, they should come the legal way. Why come here as illegals and come here as pariahs? Pakistan won't own them, we won't allow them to live, and then they will occupy space beneath our own hallowed grounds, like they have done in Dras and in Kargil, Kamarchima. Unfortunate. Ambassador Deepak Vora, you want to say something? Sir, I have to wind up 30 seconds.
I just wanted to say, sir, that, yes, sir, 15 seconds. What we have done, arresting and seizing all this nonsense which was transiting through us, it's part of our commitment to the Watanar agreement. You know all about it. Yes. We are members, sir. We became members 7-8 years ago. I was there when we signed the thing. We also chaired the thing last year, I believe. So we are keeping in, we are in conformity with our international commitments. That's what we are doing.
I think we'll dwell on Jammu and Kashmir, and also perhaps are we making a big mistake thinking that our neighbor will reform and perform and transform, while realizing at the back of our heads that they will never conform. So I have to wind up on that note. Thank you very, very much. Thank you to all our guests. Thank you very much. We're going to take a very, very short break. When we come back, ladies and gentlemen, it's the big push for the Uniform Civil Code. A big push that's come from the highest court of this country for gender and religious parity. And just around the time when the UCC draft is being made public, the thought process behind that, as it will come into fruition or come into effect from October 2024. Stay with us.
Focusing on is whether, based on Section 19 and Section 45 of PMLA, a case is made out for interim bail. And a crucial consideration under Section 45 of PMLA is also if the accused, if he's out on bail, can he in any way change the evidence, influence witnesses, tamper with the evidence? So the defense has always argued that ED had this evidence long before it arrested Arvind Kejriwal. Its basic premise that 100 crore was paid as kickback, 45 crore was used in Goa election. This was mentioned in charge sheets or prosecution complaint, as ED calls it, on multiple occasions, even before Kejriwal was arrested. So I think that is the basic point on which the defense is also arguing, that arrest was unnecessary, keeping him in custody is unnecessary. Whether he has committed the crime or not, the merit of the evidence, all that can be considered at the stage of trial.
There's been a big reprieve for the Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal, and in this big relief, the Delhi Chief Minister has been granted an interim bail by the Supreme Court in an alleged money laundering case in connection with the Delhi excise policy that was filed by the Enforcement Directorate. Now, while hearing the matter, the top court had said that Arvind Kejriwal has suffered incarceration for over 90 days, and the issue involves right to life and liberty of an individual. However, Kejriwal will not walk out of Tihar jail as he's still in custody of the Central Bureau of Investigation. Now, calling this verdict a mega victory for the Aam Aadmi Party, the party has launched a scathing attack at the BJP, calling it a witch hunt against the Delhi Chief Minister. Now, remember, the ED earlier informed the Apex Court that it had formally named Kejriwal and the Aam Aadmi Party as accused in the Delhi excise policy case, presenting alleged chats between Kejriwal and Hawala operators related to proceeds of crime.
And can you explain, in fact, what were the questions that have been referred to the larger bench by the Supreme Court?
See, Supreme Court was considering a lot of questions. One of those questions was necessity of arrest. We had argued before Supreme Court that since the evidence, the main incriminating evidence with the ED, according to them, was available since August, October, July, what was the need to arrest him in the middle of election on 21st of March? Now that is something which has resonated with Supreme Court because the argument is on the necessity of arrest. क्या arrest की ज़रूरत भी है या नहीं है? इसलिए सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने कंसीडर करा है मामला, मेरिट्स भी देखे हैं, फैक्ट्स भी देखे हैं और सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने कहा है कि हाँ जी, necessity of arrest is an important thing which the IU should consider before arresting, and on that issue as to what are the parameters of necessity of arrest, the matter has been referred to a larger bench. I am still to get the final copy of the court, so therefore I can't comment on it fully, but that seems to be the essence of the court while it was being announced.
ये पीएमएलए काला कानून है। इसके अंदर जमानत के आधार इतने मुश्किल हैं कि इसमें जमानत मिलना
Back on the right stand with me, Anand Narsimhan, coming to you live from the CNN News 18 Federal Bank Primetime Studios. Now, a big push came from the highest court of this country for gender and religious parity this week. A two-judge bench of the Honorable Supreme Court ruled that a Muslim woman can seek maintenance from her husband after divorce under Section 125 of the CRPC. It is applicable to all married women irrespective of religion, said the court. The bench said maintenance is not charity but the right of married women, and it is applicable to all married women. Some strong observations were made by the court that have now triggered a mega debate. While this provision always existed in law and many Muslim women have taken this route to get what is rightfully theirs, is it now time to end this entire legal battle for them? Could this be the beginning to bring in perhaps a commonality or uniformity in civil contract laws? With this one instance of secular law superseding personal laws, would there be a precedent that is set across the board, and would that finally pave the way for a common civil code or a uniform civil code as is mandated in the directive principles of our constitution? States are already taking the lead. The Uttarakhand state could see UCC implementation by October this year. So are we ready for this equality pan-Bharat? Let's dive into the conversation straight away. Tuhin Sinha, national spokesperson of the BJP with us, Kamru Chaudhary, political analyst with us, Amna Begum Ansari, activist with us, and in a short while we should also have Asif Sohail, political analyst, joining with us. My namaste and Jai Hind to everybody. Thank you very, very much. Your first thoughts on this, Amna Begum Ansari. Are we ready as a nation for a common civil code? Because we know that the AIMIM wants to challenge this. The Jamiyat Ulema-e-Hind are already in a huddle looking at further legal action, saying this is just a two-judge bench. Where is the problem? Because somewhere it feels like deja vu. What happened with Shabanu case in 1985?
Yeah, I think it's not only about if we are ready for it or not, it is the need of the hour. Because it has been more than 75 years since freedom that Indian Muslim women are still getting treatment of second-class citizen, I would say, within the Muslim community. And we have seen at the time of the Shah Banu that Supreme Court that time also had given the right kind of judgment, which were in the favor of women protection. And the same thing is happening again. The only difference is that now we are more aware. And we have more hope from the current government because they also have this UCC in their manifesto. So this idea is not anything against what BJP stand for. So in that regard, I am hopeful. Apart from that, now Muslim women are coming forward far more strongly for their right. If you will follow all these cases, this is filed by the Muslim women and won by them in the Supreme Court. So the women also are now more outspoken, are understanding that how they have faced discrimination in the name of the personal law. And all this opposition coming from, specifically from the male society of Muslims. If you would see the All India Muslim Personal Law Board, it's dominated by the men of the Muslim community. So they have a certain kind of authority in the name of personal law board, and they do not want to let go this authority. This is the fight of ego, I would simply say, because we already follow secular law in the criminal procedure. So that time, if our Islam is not in any kind of danger, so how it will be in danger when we will follow in personal
in civil procedures. In fact, it largely limits itself, the common civil code limits itself to 5 areas of civil procedures or civil engagements or civil contracts, that is marriage, divorce, death, inheritance and adoption. These are the 5 parameters. It does not challenge anybody's personal faith. But Tuhin Sinha, why is this to be or not to be, 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of an approach vis-a-vis the UCC? Or is the government somewhere going to leave it to the states? Because the directive principles also urge the states to try and move towards a common civil code.
Namaste, Anand. Namaste, everybody.
Namaste.
Well, the UCC has been mandated by the directive principles of our constitution. It is also the BJP's ideological commitment. So I think, it's a matter of time before we go ahead with it at the national level. That, in fact, is also a part of our manifesto. And all those people who have been in the habit of, asking us, Tariq kab bataoge, we tell the Tariq without letting you know. Now, obviously, when you look at history, there have been two incidents which have damaged the cause of UCC. One was in 1955, the Hindu Marriage Act, where, Nehru could have easily extended that to every citizen, but then he wanted to explore his pseudo-secularism and confine his pseudo-secularism to the Hindu community. 1986, the way Rajiv Gandhi reversed the Shah Banu Act with a special act, that was the second major blow. But also in the present day, in contemporary politics, there are some political parties which are very inimical to the idea of UCC, and I think that is what makes our case very strong. For example, in the series of videos that have come out of Bengal in the recent weeks, the way women have been flogged and the way a TMC MLA, 2 times MLA Hamidur Rahman, has justified it by calling that these are as per rules of the Muslim Rashtra. The way Jharkhand Congress MLA Irfan Ansari has rooted for Sharia law in the past, and the way Samajwadi Party leaders, whether it was Shafirul Barq or ST Hassan, the way they have rooted for Sharia, I think it makes it equally important for us to stay the course, and the BJP would be staying the course on it. One reason why the states have taken the lead is that, it's a complex issue. It's a complex issue. It requires a lot of negotiation at multiple levels, especially today. When there are certain parties which are clearly inimical to it. I haven't seen any political party apart from BJP support the Supreme Court stand day before yesterday on Muslim women having, access to Section 125 of the CRPC to claim, maintenance. So I think, it's important that the state governments take the lead over here. And I think that would automatically pave the way for a consensus at the national level.
Kamru Chaudhary, where do you stand on this?
Yeah. First and foremost, we, from the Congress mindset, we believe that the personal laws need an upgrade. There is no doubt about it. But the path towards the UCC should always run through the consensus. Even the directive principles of state policy have suggested that such things should be implemented on a consensus. But very funnily, when I was listening to Tuhin Sinha and a lot of BJP leaders in the past, I feel that the UCC has been portrayed as a political weapon to portray Muslims and other religious minorities as regressive. First and foremost, in 2018, the Law Commission said that UCC is neither necessary nor desirable, and secularism cannot contradict the plurality prevalent in the country. Such a wonderful statement that is. Now, if we want to implement the UCC in the country, has the Bharatiya Janata Party, despite the UCC being in their manifesto for the last 10 years, have they published a UCC draft? No. Then how do you develop a consensus on this regard? More importantly, if we suggest the names of countries like the United States who are having a uniform civil code, there also the Supreme Court has ruled that the different communities may follow traditional practices while the courts will interfere on the basis of the US Constitution. In the case of what Amna Ansari was suggesting out here, the recent Supreme Court ruling on the maintenance of a Muslim woman, what's the difference? A woman had right to recourse under the Constitution, under CRPC 125 as well, and under the Muslim personal laws also. Whichever way you go, there is always a system under the Constitution for redressal of your grievances. So I don't think so with a diverse plurality like India, where there are tribal customs, customary laws of the tribals, where there are Muslim personal laws, Sikh personal laws, or most of the other religious personal laws are there, which needs to be respected, because that's fundamental to the belief of a religious system. Like in Islam, what is the Sharia law out there? Most of the Sharia law are not being followed in India. We cannot say that the Sharia law is being implemented wholesale in India.
Correct.
But then there is always a recourse to the law. Congress party, while suggesting that the UCC may be desirable, but it cannot be enforced until a broader consensus is developed. Even in 1826, when Lord Bentinck abolished the the Sati Pratha and the Widow Remarriage Act because of various social reformers like Raja Ram Mohan Roy and all these things, a reform came about in the society. So I also, as a personal belief from the Congress's point of view, I feel that there should be a consensus coming on this rather than imposing it to use it as a political weapon.
When is the reform coming in among the Muslim society in Bharat? Kamru Chaudhary?
No.
Do we have to wait a few more centuries for that?
Yeah. Yeah,
when will the Muslim Samaj in Bharat agree to uniform codification of these laws? And just like criminal acts, even civil contracts should be codified. Why should where is the plurality? Where is the plurality in a secular Bharat when only the laws for Hindus are codified, but not for Sikhs, not for Muslims, not for Christians?
I understand. A wonderful question you have asked. Now let me take it into context with the Delhi University's introduction of the Manusmriti as a chapter in its studies out there. Now, do you consider a 2000-year-old Manusmriti as a benchmark for today's studies? I suppose none of you will be agreeing. But Tuhin Sinha will not denounce the Manusmriti out here.
But as of now, the education minister has said that there is no such move. It's not happening. So for you to use that against what the education minister has said and that there is no plan to introduce it is a falsified argument. One. Secondly, sir. No. 1 minute. 1 minute. No. It's not about outrage, sir. You can in your madrasas and Muslims can learn what is written in the Quran and the Sharia, which is 1500 years old, but a 2000-year-old Manusmriti cannot be taught in Delhi University. Quite rich coming from the Muslim Samaj about this.
No, I never
Manusmriti. No. Why was there outrage? Why was there? Who came out with the outrage about Manusmriti? Then look at the tone you use. No, then are you going to turn around and say that in Bharat we don't speak Arabic? So teach the Quran only in the local languages. Teach it in Marathi, teach it in Assamia, teach it in Bengali, and teach it in Bhojpuri and in this one. In Awadhi, don't insist on Arabic because we don't speak Arabic in Bharat. And it's a 2000, for the last 1400 years, sir, there has been no reform or no improvement that had happened. Islam continued to evolve 200 years since its inception. After that, it has not. That's what historians write, and I'm quoting them, and scholars have advised me.
Absolutely.
But, so then should that be studied based on your own argument 1500 years later?
Can I reply?
Ji.
I do not want to suggest anything what has to be done or what not has to be done, because I said the Sharia law as it is written in the Quran and the Hadith is central to the belief system.
Sharia is not written in the Quran, sir. If I'm subject to correction. You said as it is written in the Quran, sir.
I said both.
No, sir. The Sharia is not written in Quran. Shariat is part of the Hadith, sir.
I believe you are a greater scholar than anybody in this country.
No, I'm not a scholar, sir. This is what I was advised
that's
as a
what
Muslim,
you are suggesting,
as a Muslim
I don't
scholar
want
who told me that the Quran...
Anything, but sir, it's an informed debate.
So the Hadith, yes. So the Hadith, yes. But the Hadith, very humbly, sir, the Hadith is different from the Quran, is what I have been advised by Muslim scholars, and that's what I'm quoting. And I'm subject to correction. So the Shariat is part of the Hadith and not part of the Quran, is only that I said. You said Shariat is part of Quran. That's what I just objected.
I said the Shariat and the Hadith, I said, sir, these are the way of life of the Muslims in India, and it's very central to the belief system of the Muslims in India. Even an Amna Ansari,
Amna Begum Ansari.
Amna Begum Ansari, if she was there in 1400 years ago, she would have received the same justice that she is receiving today. In fact, if I don't want to belittle anybody in this studio out here, but the fact remains, it was Islam that gave some legitimacy, some rights to the Muslim women, Muslim women some 1400-1500 years ago. Even despite
Here is a suggestion, sir. Please let me know how many Islamic scholars from 1400 years ago, 1500 years ago can you quote? I can quote you at least 25 to 30 scholars who are the foremost in terms of intelligence, who are women among our Vedic scriptures, and they are known as rishis and munis. So in terms of respect and in terms of equality, in terms of secularity, sir, please, it's a little rich. The Buddhists respected women far greater. And I'm not getting into the Jains, and I'm not getting into the other faiths also.
No,
but the disrespect. Because you made it, sir. You just now made it a competition. You just now made it a competition between religions when you said 1500 years ago Islam gave women more rights than others. No, sir, it didn't. The Abrahamic faiths have done to women what none of the other faiths have done. It is one of the Abrahamic faiths that put 6 lakh women across the during the Middle Age or during the Dark Ages across all of Europe on the stakes, calling them witches. So you please tell me, sir, it's quite rich when it comes to saying delivering justice for women, and we gave justice to women, sir. You're competing with another Abrahamic faith there. There are other faiths that have given far greater place for women. The Mesopotamian civilization, Aztec civilization, Mayan civilization are all documenting this. If you want to go back into civilizational history more than 1500 years ago, 2000 years ago. But Amna Begum Ansari, coming to the present, you would have got the same justice what you got, what you're getting today 1500 years ago is what Mr. Kamru Chaudhary said. Do you agree, disagree?
I totally disagree. First of all, I want to say one thing. Please stop justification of oppression of women in the name of diversity and pluralism. That should not be your motive. Pluralism doesn't mean that you will also accommodate all the regressive practices of the community. You have to reform that as well. You will give them their way of living does not mean you will justify their inhuman practices as well, such as halala or muta marriages, which is still prevalent in the Indian Muslim society. I would say that it is atrocity against the women. First that. Second, please, every time we Muslim women come forward and speak for our right, stop teaching us Islam. We know our Islam. There is no central authority of the Islam. Every Muslims are allowed to read their Quran, to understand their Islam and follow their Islam as they understand it. Stop doing this, because that's how you control the women, by showing them the fear of the Islam. They can read for themselves. They can follow their religion. Third, the Sharia. Sharia, you can see everywhere in every country there is a different interpretation. It is subject to interpretation, isma, qiyas, a lot of things goes there. That's why if you see the Saudi Arabia, 10 years ago, they said that this is a part of the Sharia that women cannot drive. But now the same Saudi Arabia with the different interpretation saying that you can even wear the clothes the way you want. So do not say that this is a kind of God word. Only Quran is the God word for us. We take certain kind of morality from there, but Sharia is man-made. People interpret it and it can be changed. Third,
yeah, sorry.
Third,
and one, I just sorry. Okay, complete and then I'll speak. Asif Sohail is also
third,
with us here.
if a Muslim living in the secular country follow the law of the land, doesn't follow the Sharia, doesn't mean he's not or she's not a good Muslim. There are Muslims in the West who are following the law of the land. Just like Indian Muslim here, we follow criminal secular law. And even the state in Uttarakhand and Goa, Muslim follow those UCC. We are still Muslim because we have 5 basic principles. That's it's to be Muslim. So please stop bringing Islam whenever we talk about our rights. One more final thing. There are a lot of rights also in the Sharia. Indian Muslims do not practice it. Even the half inheritance, you go and ask any Indian Muslim women, do they receive it? No, they don't. Even the Hajj, the practice of dowry should not be there in Islam. But every Indian Muslim follow it, most of them. So what is this? Only selective Sharia when it comes to the women rights? Sir, this is very hypocritical of you, and please do not teach me Islam.
See, there are errors in society. Nobody is trying to teach anybody anybody's faith. But one of the unique aspects of Islam was for 200 years it continued to evolve. Even the Sharia evolved. And based on the times and places, laws were made so that how society can be there with perhaps protection to all, rights to all. Times were different. My question, Asif Sohail, is why do the fundamentalists want to take over and try to be the custodians of 27 crore Muslims in Bharat? Most of the 27 crore Muslims in Bharat are moderate. They live, with a modern thinking. They abide by the constitution. And if they can abide by the constitution for the criminal aspects of law, why not the civil contracts? And it's only these 5 platforms of birth, death, marriage, inheritance and adoption. That's where the common code comes in. Why this entire issue? Why make it about one's faith? It's not about faith. It's about human-to-human contractual relations in a country and governing laws which protect everybody.
सर देखिए, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ने हमें कल्चरल और अपने रिलीजियस राइट्स दिए हैं, ठीक है? उसको क्यों हटाने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं? हम मुझे बताइए सर, जब अब बात हो रही है वन नेशन वन इलेक्शन वन रिलीजन, तो ये देखिए मुझे तो कोई एंगल से कोई एक यूनिफॉर्म सिविल कोड नहीं सर, मुझे मेरी लेट मी कंप्लीट इट सर। एक तरफ ये तो एक यूनिफॉर्म सिविल कोड की बात कर रहे हैं, बट ये तो क्लियरली जो हो सो एक हिंदू सिविल कोड लाने की कोशिश की जा रही है, जिसमें मुस्लिम के राइट्स, मुस्लिम कल्चरल, सुनिए सर, मुस्लिम के जो राइट्स है, मुस्लिम के जो कल्चरल एक्टिविटीज को ख़त्म करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं। कोड लाने की अगर बात हो रही है सर, गुजरात में देखिए आप वहां पे डिस्टर्बेंस एरिया एक्ट एक है जहां पे मुसलमानों को घर नहीं दिया जाता, वहां पे इक्वालिटी की बात कहां से आ गई? आप बताइए, अगर उतना ही है तो लाना है तो एक तालीम के ऊपर एक कोड लाइए, आप एम्प्लॉयमेंट पे कोड लाइए। आज नीड ऑफ द आवर क्या है हमारा? रोटी, कपड़ा और मकान है। यहाँ पे आप किस चीज के लिए
आप इस बात के पक्ष में है कि राइट टू एजुकेशन मुस्लिम मदरसों में भी होना चाहिए?
नहीं सर,
मुस्लिम स्कूल्स में भी और नॉन
होना चाहिए,
होना चाहिए नहीं है ना अभी तो क्योंकि मुसलमानों ने मना किया कि राइट टू एजुकेशन हम नहीं सब्सक्राइब करेंगे।
मैंने चाइल्ड राइट एडवोकेसी में करता हूं, मैं हमेशा तालीम के साथ होता हूं। और सर उतना ही है तो हिंदू अनडिवाइडेड शेयर के ऊपर क्यों एबॉलिश नहीं किया जा रहा है? मुझे बताइए। कल देखिए आप हम करते हैं, निकाह करते हैं, आप फेरे लेते हैं, क्रिश्चियन जो सबको क्या चीज से होगा मुझे बताइए?
नहीं, फेरों से किसी को कोई रोक नहीं रहा। चीज बनाया जा रहा है। आप जो आर्गुमेंट देख, अगर आप आर्गुमेंट करना चाहते हैं, सुनिए,
आप क्या निकाह करेंगे?
आसिफ अगर आप आर्गुमेंट करना चाहते हैं तो मैं आपको एक बात बताना, मैं आपसे एक बात कह रहा हूं। देखिए, आपके फेथ पर, आपके इबादत के तरीके पर क्वेश्चन नहीं, कल्चरल राइट्स नहीं दिए। एक मिनट, आपकी फंडामेंटल राइट सिर्फ आपके पंथ को फॉलो करना है, यानी कि आपके इबादत के तरीके को आप आपके इबादत के तरीके को आप फॉलो कर सकते हैं। शादी, तलाक, इनहेरिटेंस यानी कि जो आपको संपत्ति इनहेरिट होती है, एडॉप्शन कि किसी बच्चे को गोद लेने की बात अगर होती है, और डेथ, ये 5 जो हैं ये कॉन्ट्रैक्चुअल तरीके से इसमें इसको देखे जाते हैं, इसको रिलीजियस प्रिज्म से नहीं देखा जाता। इसीलिए मैं आपको कह रहा हूं कि अगर आप इतिहास में देखें कि जिन्ना के समय में पाकिस्तान के जितने जमींदार थे और भारत के जितने मुस्लिम जमींदार थे, उन्होंने अडॉप्शन को अलाउ किया, जबकि शरीयत इसकी इजाजत नहीं देता। क्यों? क्योंकि उनके बाद उनकी जागीर को कौन देखेगा, तो उन्होंने शरीयत को अलाउ किया उस शरीयत एक्ट में। उन्होंने अडॉप्शन को उस वक्त अलाउ किया क्योंकि वो उनके लिए
बराबर में मुझे कोई
भारत के हिंदुस्तानी में कह रहा हूं, भारत के हिंदुस्तानी अभी भी उसको फॉलो कर रहे हैं। जो अमीर जमींदार थे वो भी, जो अमीर जमींदार थे वो आज भी फॉलो कर रहे हैं। मैं आपके केस, अगर आपके केस में संविधान और कोर्ट ने ये कहा है कि हर मुस्लिम महिला को गुजारा भत्ता मिलना चाहिए, उसको एलिमनी मिलनी चाहिए, तो अब आप संविधान का आदर करेंगे कि नहीं करेंगे?
नहीं सर, देखिए वो तो बराबर सर, इस्लाम तो पहले से दे रहा है गुजारा भत्ता। आज की बात क्या है सर, उसको बराबर जो 90 डेज का एक कॉन्ट्रैक्ट है।
नहीं, वन टाइम सेटलमेंट नहीं होता सर।
देखिए,
अगर आप संविधान के हिसाब से चल रहे हैं तो सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने अभी ये कहा है कि महिला को सिर्फ वन टाइम सेटलमेंट नहीं होगा। वन टाइम नहीं, अभी आप संविधान की बात करिए, अभी आप इस्लाम की बात मत करिए। जब कन्वीनियंट है तब संविधान, जब कन्वीनियंट है तब इस्लाम। तो इनसे ना आसिफ सोहेल, एक मिनट, तो इनसे ना, तो अब ही सेइंग कि in our country Islamic practices have themselves got corrupted. Now if they have got corrupted and they're not being followed, and if the top court of the country has said that listen, every woman, right to equality is a fundamental right, every woman should be treated equally and alimony rights are for every woman. So inse na, where is the problem here? Is it convenience that somebody says Islam once and Constitution the other? They are the same people who are saying save Constitution, and they are the same people who are saying Islam superior than Constitution.
The problem lies in their minds. They were accusing, I heard Asif ji accusing कि आप लोग जो है मुसलमानों के कल्चर पर अटैक कर रहे हैं। अगर किसी महिला को महंगाई भत्ता मिलना इनके कल्चर पर कैसे अटैक हो सकता है? ये चाहते हैं कि महिलाएं हमेशा पीछे रहें, and that is why I'm coming to the original point, the moot point that you had mentioned. It is important for state governments to raise the bar over here, and that is why it is important that in Assam, the Assam government under Himanta Biswa Sharma has gone one step further. They are exploring ways to legally end polygamy. Because in a modern society, such practices should have no role, because these are leading to dysfunctional society. These will eventually lead to dysfunctional society. So when you are having a frank discussion for the betterment of the society, I think, Muslim intellectuals and the Congress ecosystem, which is probably more radical than Muslims themselves, need to come forward and explore and discuss these ideas.
And point is, any scripture, be it the Quran, be it the Bhagavad Gita, be it any of the faiths, they have always held Raj Dharma or Rashtra Dharma at the highest level. So Habbal Watan is a quote which is there, which is part of Quran. So where it also says that you have to give your nation priority, nation supersedes everything else. So if the nation needs to have a certain uniformity for all its people so that there is equal justice to all, then we should rise above our individual personal differences and say, see, it's not that it's complicated and difficult only in Islam, Amna Begum Ansari. Even the Hindu Samaj, even the Jain Samaj, every other Samaj will have issues because they all want to hold on to their own personal laws for their own conveniences. But we have to look at it as a nation. Are we ready? And will the 50% of the Muslim population of this country stand up together along with another 30% of the male population who agree largely that there should be a certain uniformity, barring a few fundamentalists? Amna Begum Ansari, final word.
There was a time when women were even against to get a voting right. So it is not about the majority, it is about what is right thing to do in the favor of nation and in the favor of human rights. Women are human and our rights are human rights, and we have to talk about. And I do believe that every citizen of India, every citizen, my Hindu brother, my Hindu sister, they should also speak up. Don't we say that we belong to us, to Indian identity? So why this separation that you cannot speak in our matter? When we can speak about casteism as much as we want, about the Hindu casteism, Hindus should also stand up and talk about us. We have to have dialogue between them, among us.
But the change begins from within, and others speak about the Hindu society because there are many Hindus who are open enough to, and Hinduism or perhaps that way of life allows for criticism and for reform, and the reform comes from within. And I believe that reform has to come from every Samaj. Unless we look at nation as a priority and uniformity across the board so that nobody's life is hindered, we are not going to be able to move forward. And we have to stop looking at it from a religion prism or a personal prism. It's got to be a common prism. That's my only submission. I have to wind up on that note. Thank you very much. Thank you to all our guests. Thank you. It's a happy day as Anant Ambani and Radhika Merchant tie the knot. Our heartiest congratulations and best wishes for a long, happy, blissful wedded life. Here's a glimpse into the celebrations.
बालकनी
ऐसे में लोअर कोर्ट का पहले इनको बेल देना, न्याय बिंदु जी ने बेल दी और न्याय बिंदु जी ने अपने फैसले में लिखा ईडी इज एक्टिंग विद बायस। मतलब ईडी अरविंद केजरीवाल के खिलाफ काम कर रही है, सिर्फ इन्वेस्टिगेशन का काम नहीं कर रही है, उनको फंसाने का काम कर रही है। ऐसे में आज सुप्रीम कोर्ट की जमानत बहुत बड़ी बात है।
Let me take this across to my colleagues Ananya and Anshul, who are live with us on the broadcast. Also joining me is Arunima. Ananya, I'll come to you first. A very important aspect coming out of the court questioning how the entire evidence that in fact was in fact laid down by the Enforcement Directorate necessitating the arrest, that the ED was in possession of much earlier. So why the arrest is the big question, and that's why this matter is with a larger bench now. If you can just break down that exact point that the Supreme Court is making when it comes to Section 19 of the PMLA.
Well, definitely, first of all, it's a humongous yet ineffective relief that comes to the Delhi Chief Minister because he is still inside the jail in the CBI matter. Now, when we talk about the issues that have been referred to the larger benches with regards to whether necessity to arrest is something that should be looked at while, Section 19 is being exercised by an investigating officer, that is something that the court has referred to a larger bench. And with regards to Section 45 too, certain questions have been referred to the larger bench of the Supreme Court. And remember that, the detailed order copy is to come out very soon in this particular matter. But what is very, very clear at this particular point of time is that Arvind Kejriwal will remain inside the jail, though interim bail has been granted. But this interim bail has not been granted on the merits of this particular matter. It has just been granted, just because there is some lacuna in the law that needs to be fixed. Hence, the matter has been referred to a larger bench at the Supreme Court, which will be looking into the aspect of bail as well when it comes to, Mr. Arvind Kejriwal. This is an interim bail. This is not a final or a regular bail that has been granted to the Delhi Chief Minister. It is yet again an interim bail coming in from the Supreme Court for the Delhi Chief Minister. However, what happens before the larger bench is something that only time can tell.
Right. Arunima is also with us on the broadcast. Arunima, there were some chats that were presented by the ED of Arvind Kejriwal with some Hawala operators. All of that evidence the Supreme Court seems to have put aside while granting this interim bail, saying that, all of these evidence the ED was already in possession of. Then what was the need to necessitate the arrest? That's why the Aam Aadmi Party is right now crying foul and claiming that the ED is again working at the behest of the centre. How strong will the ED case be from here on, and what can the Enforcement Directorate do now to justify the grounds of arrest?
See, the Enforcement Directorate will obviously argue that the decision by the Supreme Court is not as per the merit of the investigation that has been carried out. That evidence that ED has managed to put together, everything that they have said by way...
The CNN News 18 and Federal Bank Primetime Studio.
Hello and welcome to Brass Tacks. I'm Zaka Jacob. We're coming to you live from the CNN News 18 and Federal Bank Primetime Studio. It's a big relief to the Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal. The Supreme Court today has granted interim bail in a money laundering case in connection with the Liquorgate scandal. Now, the top court of the country has said that Kejriwal suffered incarceration for over 90 days and that the issue involves the right to liberty and life, as well as that of a question of freedoms of an individual. However, Kejriwal will not walk out of the Tihar jail just yet because he is still in CBI custody until the 25th of July. That's a separate matter from the ED case for which he was given interim bail.